Morning, everyone. Welcome to the weekly meeting. My name is Zoar Morales. If you haven't seen me before, I'm one of the alumni of this program, of the SkillBridge RE internship. And as you can see, this is the outside. I'm out here in Hawaii. I live here, been here since 2015, got out in 2021. My wife and I have been doing real estate full time, including 6 months from SkillBridge. We'll be at 3 years in July. So right at that point where they say 80% of new realtors don't make it past that point. So we're about to cross that line. So we'll see if we pop off the radar at that point. But just wanted to welcome you guys to the group. Today we'll be doing a quick Q&A portion, and then David's going to hop on and talk about some of the hype you might have heard about the changes for the NAR situation with buyer representation, and just allowing everybody else into the group for 1 second. So rules of engagement for the meeting as usual. If you're in a safe situation, please turn your camera on. And then today it's just going to be kind of an open forum. So feel free to unmute yourself, raise your hand, put a question in the chat box. And it could be anything related to the SkillBridge program, the real estate and getting started, and or even just getting out of the military and getting into real estate. So go ahead and start sending your questions over. While people are thinking of their questions, I'll just go ahead and talk about my personal thoughts about this recent change. So just like anything, it is what it is, and it's what you make of it. So if the military said, we're going to require you to do this thing, and you either accept it and say, or you get out, then if you stick around with it, you're just going to adapt. You're going to make it happen. You're going to push through it, figure out a way, adapt and overcome. And so same thing with real estate. And for a lot of you may not have any idea what I'm talking about, but basically there was a lawsuit. Not exactly sure who the folks were that were suing, like realtors in general, but from now on, in a lot of places, it's going to vary by state, and it's going to take a while for all states to kind of get on the same page. But on a listing, you'll no longer see the percentage that's available for the buyer's agent. And so I'll pull up a sheet real quick to show you what that looks like, because a lot of times you don't really see it on Zillow or most of those websites, because they kind of hide that information. But I'll share this screen real quick. All right, sharing this MLS listing. So can everybody see that? Somebody give them a thumbs up. Thank you, Chase. All right, so this is a fact sheet, and when you go in your MLS, there's different ways of printing this thing out. And so you can do like client, agent version, full. There's all these different options, and that just determines what information is displayed. And so when you do the full, it shows right here, compensation for the buyer's agent. And so what I tell a lot of my buyers is, or my sellers, is when we're talking about the amount to put for the buyer's agent, I tell them, hey, there's some folks out there that are kind of greedy, and if there's not at least 2.5% there for the buyer's agent, there's a good chance that they won't show your property to their client. And that's just my observation of what I've seen. You see a lot of listings on the MLS that sit if they're 2% or below, especially the ones that say $1 or compensation negotiable. So basically that's what the big drama and controversy is about. So from now on, this will be blank, and you'll have to talk with the list agent. And again, it varies state by state. Some states it'll be little to no effect. In some states it's going to be a really dramatic shift. And so with that going away, it's a lot of people are just talking about like how it's going to kill Zillow or kill buyer's agents, make it really difficult for people to get into the business. But at the end of the day, it's what you make of it. So I'm looking in the chat box. I see got a message from Lonnie talking about the AI assistant. I don't know what that is, but yes, that's my take on it. will it make things a little bit more challenging at first? Sure. Yeah, it might be because now they're going to starting to require you to get a buyer's representation agreement signed before even opening a door. Um, in like the hot period during COVID, you would meet a person on the street. Hey, tomorrow let's go check out properties since you said you want to buy a house, and you go show them property. They may or may not stick with you to buy a property, and then it's kind of just works out that way. Most of the time, as long as you make a good impression, um, chances are they're going to stick with you, and then it's not nothing to worry about. But now they're requiring that you get a buyer's representation agreement, which locks them in to the brokerage, um, and ensures that you are going to be compensated for your work, and that the brokerage is going to be compensated for all the information that they're providing through you. So people are kind of scared about that because it's like you meet a stranger, talk to them for a couple hours, and then you're asking them to sign this contract, committing them to you or to the brokerage. And so people kind of have some uneasiness about that, especially in this world we live in where commitment is pretty lacking. People are always afraid to stick it out with a commitment situation. So yeah, that's kind of one of the big talking points that people are kind of figuring out how they're going to improve their approach to doing those buyer's representation agreements. And some people already use those. For me personally, I haven't done those. Um, if a client doesn't want to work with me, I don't really care. The Lord provides for me in every way. So if they decide they don't want to work with me because they don't like me for whatever reason, they don't like how I talk, they don't like my honesty, whatever, then it's completely up to them. I really don't care. But now it's a requirement that I have to get this form filled out, and so I do need to practice. Hey, all the value I'm going to provide to you, which if you're already a quality um, buyer's agent, you really don't need to tell them, hey, I'm a really good buyer's agent. It'll just come out in all the value that you're pouring into them, all the information you're giving them about the local area, about moving there, about things to look out for when you're buying a home. All those things that um, you don't really understand until you're actually in the process of buying a home, kind of preparing them for that so they know they learn what they didn't know before. It kind of erasing that I don't know what I don't know type thing and filling in all those gaps. Yeah. Any questions that people have thought of in general while I've been flapping my gums?
Are you able to hear me by chance or no?
Yeah, go ahead, Chase.
Okay, sorry. I'm pretty bad at technology, but this is just like an off the subject kind of thing, I guess. When it comes to networking, what's like something that you normally use to network? You go to events, what kind of like things do you do to like, meet clients or, business cards, et cetera, stuff like that. What's your take on that? I'm new by the way. I'm like a weekend. So I'm still learning the ropes.
Okay. Yeah, welcome to the program. So one of the things that I always recommend to folks, like especially once you're getting licensed, but you can also do it right now if you're not already licensed, is just going through your phone. And so I have like 3,000 contacts, which is kind of abnormal, but because every person that I've ever called, I save their contact information from all my time in the Marine Corps, all the different exercises and stuff, planning, whatever. I would just save their contact because I never knew if I was going to need to reach out to them again for something else. And so that's one recommendation I have. Just go through your phone, regardless of if it was some person you had a planning meeting with, only talk to them for like 5 minutes. That's a perfect opportunity to practice your cold calling skills because with that person, you at least know that they're in the military, so you have some kind of common level ground. Whereas if you're just calling some random stranger that you don't know if they are you bought their lead information and you think they're the owner of this home that you're trying to sell, but you don't know for sure they might be the tenant or they might just be some complete stranger with the wrong number. And so you're calling this person and you're like, hey, is this so and so this name that I have on the list? And then they're like, oh, click. So with a stranger in your phone that you only talk to for a couple minutes during your career, You can reach out to, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but we did this planning exercise back in the day, whatever. Just wanted to reach out and kind of building my network to let people know that I'm in real estate or whatever, however you want to shape it, and just use it as a live practice opportunity for cold calling. But other people, like your friends, people that you knew pretty well, just call, catch up with them, and it's naturally going to come out in your conversation that you're in the real estate business. Because yeah, as far as networking, the the biggest source that I've had for leads is just people that I know. So this book called Work by Referral by Brian Buffini, like that's what kind of like sold me on using that approach. And so yeah, just kind of always use that as let my friends know, post it on social media. Social media is the most powerful thing you can do to let people know, because you can just constantly keep them updated because people are always on their phones. And you can just post, hey, I'm out here doing a showing for this buyer, or for getting this property ready for listing, whatever it is. Just always post about that stuff, and you don't always have to talk about real estate stuff in that clip or that reel, whatever it is. You can be like, hey, I'm out here checking out this house. I just want to share you guys my thoughts on the best restaurant, or like it can be completely irrelevant to the location that you're at. Just sharing your thoughts like people do on lives and whatnot on Facebook. Does that answer your question? All right. And
Thank
David
you.
Quill just
Sorry.
popped in. So go ahead, Jace.
No, I was just saying thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for asking the question. And David just popped in. He's going to be chiming in to talk more in detail about the change with the NAR thing.
Yeah. So are you done with what you wanted to walk through?
Yep, all set.
Okay, cool, man. All right. So how many of y'all have seen the headlines? Show of hands. 6% commission's done, 5%'s done, buyers agents are gone. All the fun, salacious headlines that are out there to get clicks. How many of y'all believe it? How many of y'all believe that there was a standard 5 or 6%? You may not have access to know the data, right, if you don't have a license yet. But the reality is, if you go look in the MLS, commissions have always been negotiable, right? Like this lawsuit, unfortunately, never should have been lost, but that's a whole nother story. It was. NAR vowed to appeal. NAR has since decided that it is cheaper for them and their members to do a settlement instead, to try to wipe out the seller lawsuits and the copycat lawsuits, pull those off the table, exempt all of us as individual agents, right? Once you get your license, and those that aren't licensed, you guys have no exposure at this point, right? You haven't been an agent during that period. You weren't included in the lawsuit to begin with. So this is really more for awareness than anything. For a lot of you guys that are coming into the industry that are going to get your license, June, July timeframe, the new normal for us agents that have been around a while, been doing this for a bit, is just going to be your normal, right? You won't know anything else but what you're walking into, the environment that you're going to have to operate within. So the biggest thing that I wanted to come to you guys with is, as you're practicing your skill sets and everything else within, SkillBridge RE, as you're doing any role playing, is you're just trying to decide like what videos to go watch, what skill sets to build. If you want to work with buyers, which I still highly recommend, you will want to hone your skill of being able to identify your value to those buyers, right? It is going to come up in conversation more than it would before, because there will be a requirement for you to get a signed buyer representation agreement, whatever that equates to in your state, right? They're all going to have different forms, but there will have to be a signed form before you can show a buyer a home come mid-July, assuming that the proposed settlement gets approved by the court and DOJ doesn't, contradict what they wanted before. So if that goes into place, unlike today, like today, you can get a signed call. Hey, I want to see this house. You go show up. It's your call as a business decision to decide whether or not you're going to show a buyer a home today without a signed buyer rep. Come mid-July, assuming everything goes into play that they're talking about, that will no longer be your decision. You will be required to have a buyer rep signed with a buyer to show them homes. Now, where you do get to make some decisions, and there is still trade space here, which is why it's important to collaborate with folks. I don't know if you guys joined the call. Lonnie, I know that you were on. Zohar, I'm sure that you were on. But the EXP call, for example, they had it on YouTube. There were 46,000 plus people watching it once. right? That was pretty impressive. I mean, that's half the EXP agents, assuming that they're all EXP. There were probably some non because we all put it out there for other agents from other brokerages to attend. But I also know like Curtis Johnson, one of our friends and colleagues, had 30 plus people in his office watching off one stream, right? So there were even more than that were actually watching. But in that, they walked through a lot of this stuff. And the reality is that in this new normal, once it comes about, you're going to have business decisions to make on how you want to conduct your business. And so it's good to start thinking about that and strategizing now. And some of the stuff being tossed around is you could start charging buyers on a per door basis if you want to. And again, this is all assuming they're not VA buyers, right? There are the VA laws out there. So non-VA buyers, you could charge them per door to open plus a commission percentage if you so choose. We could all go the lawyer route at some point and say, okay, great, I'm going to be hourly. I'm also going to charge you a retainer that you pay up front that's non-refundable. You can go the route of accepting 1%, 2%, 0.5%, whatever you choose that's within your best interest and your client's best interest as you make business decisions. What you can't do is you cannot leave it open-ended. So it's one of the things they identified. You cannot just put whatever the seller offers, right? It has to be a definitive amount, whether it's hourly, percentage-based, whatever that may be. Again, you can provide a la carte services. I know internally to our team, we're starting to look at this much like we do with our listings and trying to decide if we're going to create sort of a silver, gold, and platinum level of service for buyers, and they pay a different commission depending upon which service level they want, right? And so there's ways to construct your business going forward that we didn't actually have an opportunity to do before. But there are different challenges perhaps that you're going to have to overcome, especially if you're not used to having the buyer rep conversation and walking through that with buyers. I'll tell you, for us, at least for the last 2+ years, for the most part, we get a buyer rep signed by at least 75% of the clients that we're helping. There are some clients that absolutely don't want to sign it. We make a personal decision. Is it still worth working with them? Do we feel as though they're committed? Are they just working with 10 agents at once? All those types of things. But you have to make that personal business decision. Again, come July, assuming that this stuff goes into place, you won't have that decision to make anymore. You will have to get a rep signed, but you can decide what that compensation structure looks like. You can also decide if you want it just to be a non-exclusive representation agreement signed for a single home that you're going to show them. So there is still some flexibility there. There's a lot of the same flexibility we have today. It's just not all agents were getting buyer reps signed before. The other thing that's going to change is you will no longer be able to go on the MLS and see what someone's going to pay you for a house if the buyer buys that house. It can be shown elsewhere. I know that there's already agents on their own sites. They're already starting to put what buyer agent compensation is for their different listings, because nothing from the lawsuit prevents it from being in the public sphere. It only prevents it from being a field on the MLS. Lonnie, you got a question?
Not really a question, but for me, what I learned, especially after yesterday, is I learned to be a listing agent, because it's not easy. At least at first it's not. Is buyer's agents now have to do what listing agents have to do every day and prove your value.
Yep.
To the people you're working with. And prove your value, but also know your value and be willing to either work for free or not work for free.
Right.
Because if you can't prove your value, you're either not going to work or you're going to work for free.
Yep. No, and it's, I mean, we've done a lot of
listings, guys.
Yeah, and we've done a lot of listings, right? And it is tougher because you're usually on a listing, unless it's past client, right? You're sitting down at their table in their house. The relationship is new, right? And you're starting to talk about money and how much you're going to keep from the sale of their home. And then most of the time, you'll get some people that want to negotiate, some that don't, right? And if they want to negotiate, then you have to make a business call. Am I going to take it at 5% or 4% or 3%, whatever the case is, right? Because you have plenty of discount brokerages out there sending out mailers saying, we'll list your home for 1%. What they really meant when they sent those out, and they had the disclaimer on there, we'll list your home for 1% plus whatever the buyer agent commission is, right? So they were taking it that way. They were using their little shrewd marketing techniques, right, to get people to look at it and call them and all that stuff, putting in very, very small fine print that they're still going to pay the buyer's agent side. And that's how, Redfin, Open Door, that's how all those operated too, right? They were discounts on the listing side, try to be volume, but they couldn't be 1% total because buyer's agents would never bring buyers if it was a 1% split total to split between two agents. So, and you guys will see as you get your license and as you start working with folks. I mean, Lonnie, to your point, yes, it is on the listing side. I would say it's a higher level confidence and skill set at times for the conversation up until July when we flip the switch, right? And this becomes the buyer talk too. Buyer talk is going to become just like the listing agent talk come July, assuming that we stay and this proposed settlement goes into place. What I will say on the flip side is listings, once you have them, at least in a seller's market, are much lower hours into them to get to an eventual sale than buyers, right? And the NAR stat, I think, is 40 hours on average spent on a listing, 80 hours on average spent on a buyer. With buyers in the past, there's a lot of time that's uncompensated, right? So if you ever get the argument, like, you know, people talk to you, hey, I just can't understand why a realtor should make 6% when I, you know, sell my house. You can start walking them through, well, here's the broker split, here's my team split, here's my mentor split if you have one, right? Here's my taxes, here's my gas. By the way, I don't get any healthcare coverage from my employer because I'm an independent contractor, so I have to pay for that on my own too. And oh, by the way, here's all the hours that I spent once you get, you know, enough of your career where you can log these. Here's all the hours I spent helping people and providing them my expertise and services that I got paid zero. So there's a reason why it gets made up when there's a successful sale. We are one of the only industries on the face of the earth that you get paid only upon a successful sale, and you can get paid nothing if the sale doesn't go through. And you can have buyers and sellers try to walk away from you at the last minute and not pay you, even if you delivered on your services. We had a really nasty one 2 years ago, and no one likes to talk about bad stuff that happens, right? So I'll bring up fun, bad things. So we had a nasty one 2 years ago where it was a divorcing husband and wife. $1.4 million sale, I think, or 135 is what we put them under, all cash, but the highest at that time for EXP Express offers, so our all cash platform in California. And the husband is the one that selected us. So they're getting divorced. Husband says, I want to use these people. And the wife, initially, they've been separated for quite some time, is grilling us like crazy. And, oh, you must be a plant. And how's my husband know you? And I don't think I can trust you guys. And, you know, all this stuff. Great. So we get through that. The wife agrees, yes, we'll use these people as the listing agent, even though I don't want to. We get that started. There's some more stuff that goes on as we do the tour of the home, and the wife's on FaceTime doing it, and the mistress is there and all that fun stuff. But then we get to the end where we have an accepted cash offer. And because of the fact that the cash offer delayed from closing in like 12 days to 15 days, because they needed 3 extra days for whatever, the soon-to-be ex-husband started getting mad and emails the soon-to-be ex-wife and says, we need to fire these realtors and go find someone else. And they can't get this client across the table in time on, you know, the date that was promised and all this. They're horrible, right? So all of a sudden we go from being great to the husband, and the wife, I don't know if I can trust these people. They're probably, you know, my husband's friends from somewhere, to the husband, despite us delivering on our promises and giving them a cash buyer that's able to close 3 days later, telling the soon-to-be ex, hey, we should fire these people while we're in contract. And then the soon-to-be ex contacts us, you know, on our own on the back end and is like, I see very clearly at this point that you're obviously not friends with him. And thank you so much for protecting my interests. And she's super happy and, you know, great referrals and all that stuff at this point, right? But the husband who was happy at that point, no reviews, no referrals, no contact afterwards, right? Wanted nothing to do with us because the cash buyer delayed 3 days. Now, had we not had a contract in place, right, with an accepted offer, they very well could have literally fired us despite the fact that we delivered on all the things that we were supposed to and put a ton of work into it, and we would have gotten nothing, right? So your contracts on the listing side protect you today. Your contracts on the buyer side will likely protect you going forward in the future, but it is going to take some time for the precedents to be set, where if buyers do walk away, or if buyers sign, for example, 5 buyer rep agreements with different people that are all exclusive buyer reps, because how are you going to know? We don't put buyers on the MLS, right? Listings go on the MLS, so I can look up and see, yep, that home's listed. I can't take it as well because someone's got an exclusive. But buyers don't go into a database like that. So I fully believe we're going to have buyers, you know, there will be some buyers out there that still sign exclusives. Yeah, I'll pay you, whatever. but they're going to work with 5 agents. 1 will close, 4 are going to be mad, and there will be some legal precedents that come down after that too with lawsuits. But I will say, I think it's a step in the right direction with having to have a buyer rep to show people homes. You're assuming liability. You are, I don't recommend this anymore, but you are possibly taking them around in your car. We haven't driven anyone around for over 5 years. And part of the reason for that is you assume liability. You know, they could get mad. Plus, you need some time away from them in between showings, right? To vent or, you know, just de-stress a little. But also because Tasha got back, you know, for us, she was in a wreck in 2020 when she was on her way to a showing. And that jacked up her back, her neck, everything else. Had her clients been in that car, something could have happened to them as well. And not only the person that hit her, but also she could have been legally liable and exposed for them to file a lawsuit against her. Right. So best practice, I know it sometimes can be more comfortable. Hey, clients just want to ride with you. We're going somewhere. It's easier. Just take one car. I always advise still keep them in their own car. They've got their own insurance. Let them drive. Let them take on that responsibility. You drive your own vehicle. Right. But I do think we're going a step in the right direction with having to have buyer reps for you to show properties to people, for this to become more of a profession and for the public to see it as such. It's already been there, but the public, unfortunately, for a long time has looked at realtors somewhat in the way of, well, I can find the home online. All you're really doing is opening the door for me. You're just a glorified door opener, right? And I think having the conversation with people up front about what all you provide and showing them your value and talking through what value set you provide to them will help get rid of that notion up front. And so it is going to require higher level conversations. I do recommend all of you plug into the different things that you have available to you. For those that are already licensed, you have fast forward movement and all that stuff. For those that are not, you have SkillBridge RE to go in there and look at stuff. I'm sure we will have items that we can drop in there over time. That's sort of best practices, how to walk through it. Everyone's going to have a different value prop though, obviously. You all should be going through and doing the NAEA certified home buyer certification classes. Those will help walk you through your value prop, even as a brand new agent. I would also recommend, now that we're going to this route with buyer reps and actually sitting down and having it much like a listing appointment, pay the $70 or whatever it is once you complete that NAEA course for both of them and purchase what they call the placemat, which is a large laminated sheet that you can take with you to a buyer rep appointment now, much like a listing appointment, to walk them through all the steps you're going to do for them as a buyer's agent. And that way you can articulate your value. You don't have to actually talk to each one, but just having them all there for them to see visually helps. And then point out the ones that you think are important. Last item I want to chime on for you guys, as you come on board with EXP, one of the massive advantages you're going to have over other companies at this point. And we saw, I don't know, Lonnie, if you caught it yesterday or Zohar, there was someone, I think it was on the fast forward movement call. So if you guys were on that one afterwards, there was someone that commented on there saying, hey, I've only been at EXP now for like a month. Compass has been doing this forever and it's been great, but EXP, it's on a whole nother level, right? You saw that, Lonnie? So that's talking about our Zenlist platform, the EXP exclusives. So because of the fact that we are one office, one company, one brokerage, we can actually share from California off-market listings to New York off-market listings with all our agents within the company. I can go online and look at them right now. I believe, go online and even see the international off-market listings. And so that's a huge advantage we have for both our buyers and our sellers, is to be able to put that out to 89,000 agents when the property may not yet be ready for market, or the sellers don't want it going on market. Let's say it's a divorce. They don't want people knowing, or they want it to be, you know, a sale that happens without it being advertised to the public. We have the ability to do those and put it on a platform and advertise it to 89,000 agents. Whereas the next largest brokerage ability to advertise based on how their offices are set up is probably 1,000 or less. So that's a huge advantage that we have internally, and that's included with your EXP monthly fee. So I'll open it up to you guys. Any questions about what you're seeing in the headlines? Any talk tracks that you want to walk through as far as, you know, how to communicate with potential clients, or just your sphere as you're in the process of getting your license and launching this real estate career during sort of these weird times? Y'all are all good? No, someone's got to have questions.
I forget what it's called. Sorry, I'm Chase. How you doing?
Hey.
It's called like it's not drop shipping, but it's for houses. I can't remember what it's called. I was looking at getting into that, like kind of as like a side thing. How does it work? Have you ever done anything like that? Do you know? Do you know? I don't know. Remember the proper wording for it, but
You talk about actually dropping stuff off at homes as far as like transportation delivery outside of real estate, or are you talking about like every door direct mail, EDDM to get postal mailers delivered to them?
I mean, like, so, like, for instance, you contact, people that are interested in buying houses, and then you get in touch. You get what they want in their house, and you look around for like what they want in their home, whether it be a pool or whatever, and then you contact the seller, and you find like 10 houses or something, and then you send to the buyer. These are the houses I have. Let me know if any of these work for you. And then out of that 10, maybe they'll give you two or something, and then you there's a contract for if you sell that house, get the seller to sell it to the buyer or something like that. I forget what it's called. I was just wondering if you have ever done anything like that. There's a word for it. I gotta look more into it, but
I don't know if
I
you're
just
talking
saw.
about, is it wholesaling that you're thinking?
I think it might be wholesaling, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I've known a lot of people that do wholesaling. I personally never have. Um, I mean, you'll find stuff. If you go on Facebook groups, right, you're going to see the same home advertised by 20 different people, right?
Okay.
Especially for off-market properties. And really what a lot of that is just wholesalers, or it's a daisy chain of wholesalers is what it's called. So there are times like if you're interested in the property, and I've had some that I was looking at for ourselves for investments, and you try to dive into it, and the point of contact that you're reaching out to is 15 levels removed from the actual seller. Right. So
Okay.
that stuff gets really difficult. The other thing that I would say is there's a big movement within the US across most of the states right now to make wholesaling require a real estate license as well. So I would still get that. EXP does now allow you to do wholesaling. They did not before, but you have to have your contracts for wholesaling approved by the state broker. And I believe
Okay.
that's state dependent as well. So based upon whether or not it's allowed in the state, obviously. Personally, if I was getting into the industry, that's probably not the route I'd go to start with, unless that's something that just incredibly interests you. But all you're doing at that point is you're taking data and trying to sell it to someone else, right? You're trying to be a connector. And unless you have a massive following or you're willing to go on a bunch of groups and post it all day long, and that's the route that you want to go, typically most of the wholesalers that I see aren't actually transacting a lot of deals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Who else? Who's testing for the license in the next month? Any of you? Okay, Carlos. This stuff scare you at all? I mean, be honest.
I mean, a little bit, just because for the last few months I was prepping to go into a certain market, and then now that this whole change and like everyone's saying that's going to be a big lift on how it's going to act. I'm like, oh shoot, everything I'm preparing for, I kind of have to prepare for something else, at least mentally, but as well like physically with the contract and all that stuff. I had a question earlier, and actually just came back to me. In your personal opinion, do you think that the commissions are still going to stay around that 2 to 3% for the buyer's agent and the seller's agent, or do you think there's going to be like a big shift?
So I think at least initially, just my opinion, right? And I could be proven wrong for sure. But I think at least initially, I think we'll stay probably somewhere around the norm, just because that's where comps have been at. That's what's been priced into homes so far. That's what buyer's agents are used to receiving. And at the end of the day, sellers need a buyer's agent bringing a buyer in most cases. If you look at the scenarios, it's, dual agency transaction volume is typically 10% or less in any state, right? Including the states that allow it. So with that, you need someone different on the other side to bring the buyer. When you're having the conversation with the seller, my conversation with the seller is going to be, well, we want the most eyeballs on your property possible. And to do that, especially if you want to include VA and FHA, buyers, you're going to need to offer buyer's agency commission, right? And so then we'll walk through what's fair, what they want to do, whether or not we can take it out of ours, depending upon what they're agreeing on the listing commission with us. I do think there will be some opportunity for some buyer's agents to earn even more than they were before, because we were seeing a downward trend in the BAC, down to anywhere from 2.5% to 1.5%, even 1% on some deals. I think there's opportunities. Again, you could do retainers, you could do hourly, you could do, mark it out as 4% and then do an addendum with the buyer and say, hey, but I'll accept up to 2% max from you, right? And then go after the rest from the seller. One of the things that I found interesting when we walked through the item was you cannot increase the amount that you're going to get paid after you sign the buyer rep and after you show the house. So it's got to be set before you show the homes to them. And you could change it right after your first couple home showings. They could then modify it, and any future showings would qualify under that. So you can't increase it, but you can decrease it still by giving concessions and all that type of stuff. So that's important to think about too, where you could have that conversation with your buyer of, hey, I'll give a concession up to this amount if they're not coming in at the full amount. Those are items to walk through. I do think we're also going to see some very interesting aspects within the marketplace too. Like, we have a few agents that we know of from our California market that if you get into contract with them, they're most likely going to try to beat your seller up on price over nothing, right? Like literally perfectly good hardwood floors, and they're going to come in and go, well, my client decided after the fact they'd really rather have tile in the house, so they want a $20,000 credit. And we've had to be able to fight against that in the past. And there's one agent in particular that I'm thinking of. In this scenario, I think if she was offering on a house, I wouldn't offer anything on the buyer's agent side. Now, in coordination, consultation, and approval with the seller, obviously. But that's because I know with her in particular, the deal is going to be incredibly difficult. It may not even close, and it's probably not in the best interest of the seller to accept her client's offer because of who she is as an agent and the fact that she tries to blow up deals after she gets in escrow. Right. So I think the relationships in this business are going to become even more important than they have been, in the sense of the BAC can change agent to agent. It's no longer a unilateral offer of compensation from the seller to the buyer's agent that's fixed once it goes in the MLS, right? Like, they could go, hey, I'll give you $500 if you bring a buyer, but Zohar, I really like you, man. I'll give you 5% because I know you're going to close and you're not going to ask for anything. They can do that if they want to. I don't know if that's going to happen, but that is in the realm of the possible for sellers. So I don't see it going away. Again, all the headlines say there's a fixed 5 or 6%, right? That's what all the headlines are putting out right now. The fixed 5 to 6% is dead. Well, Sherman antitrust law, there never was a fixed percentage. A lot of people would have been in jail over the last 30 years if the percentage was fixed under that law. So there's that piece of it. And number two, you could easily go in the MLS and just sort on buyer agent commission and see that it varies from it was varying from $1 all the way up to 3.5%, 4% with builders. So it obviously wasn't fixed. I do think the norms will stay around for a while. I think over time, we'll see what happens. Right. So the most frequent buyer agent commission that we see still, which is the language I've landed on for what's allowed to say, because you can't stay standard, right? So the most frequent one that I see is probably 2% to 2.5%, somewhere in that range. 2.25, 2.5. In Florida, for example, it's often 2.5%, but there's usually a $295, $395, $495, whatever it is, transaction fee that the listing agent charges the buyer's agent, which I find really interesting. So I don't know if Hawaii does that, Zohar, but Florida does it, California does. So it's state specific. But they charge
Jersey
that, they retain that, or it goes to their broker, right?
Jersey does. I charge 200.
I guess what I would give back to you is I wouldn't get worried and turn away from the industry that you were looking at coming into. I think you'll be fine. You may have to level up some skills that you weren't going to have to do before, but I think in general, it'll be better for you anyways. If you can build that skill set and be able to talk to a buyer like you can talk to a seller, it's going to serve you well throughout your career. Lonnie, you were going to say something?
I was just saying Jersey does the transaction fees as well.
Yeah. It's weird.
I do 200 for my listings.
Okay. It doesn't go to EXP though, right? You're just keeping it on your side. Like it splits with EXP, but you keep it on
Yep.
your side. Okay. Interesting. I think some KWs require them to charge it. I think that's where I typically see it from most of the time, but cool. Yeah. So, the whole 700,000 agents going away or the real estate industry is dead. I mean, people have been trying to say that realtors are going to go away for the last 2 decades at least. You can't replace human relationships. And to a degree, you can replace human intelligence with artificial intelligence to a degree, right? But if you want to say that it can all go away and it's we're easily replaceable and everything else, just go look at Zillow, right? The Zillow CEO, when he sold his house, the estimate on his house was massively incorrect, something like 33 or 40% off. That's his company, his house, not the right estimate, right? So when you have clients come to you as estimates, the first thing I say to them is, I'll bring that up. And I'll bring up the fact that it doesn't actually include the upgrades in the home, current market conditions, current market rates. I mean, there are just so many variables to take into account that one, valuation model can't really do it. So cool. You guys got me for a few more. What other questions do you have? Fears? Like fears, okay. Tell you there's fear in the industry from people all the way from brand new agents to even seasoned agents, right? Human nature, people do not like change. Even if this changes for the better for us over time, humans don't like change. And this is definitely a big change for us.
I'm personally
I don't have a question, but I just want to tell the group that we do have access while we're in this program to go to join the Fast Forward Movement Zoom calls every Monday. And I would just encourage you all to do that. You learn a lot, and it also is very positive. So they talk about all of these things and kind of just encourage you and motivate you so that you don't have as much fear. For me, at least, I find it like exciting that we're having this change now versus more fearful. And much of it has to do with what they talk about in that Fast Forward Movement group. So
yeah,
just something to attend if you can.
Yeah, appreciate that. I would say a lot of this is about your mindset, right? So we can't control the proposed settlements coming down. We can't even control what forms they're going to require or anything else, but you can control whether or not you decide this is going to be a positive or a negative for you in your life and in your business. And there's so many different opportunities that this is bringing out now. I personally think it's going to be a positive long-term. Again, it's just different conversations that we need to have. So, and that's fine. I mean, that's where the skills will come out and the interpersonal relationships come out. I mean, the fact that there is no allowed set commission and it can't go online now, and it takes a personal relationship and a personal conversation to get into a buyer rep situation and to go show people homes. Now you've gotten even further away from the AI model that everyone said that we were going to drive towards. Right. So, yeah, I think it's positive. The fast forward movement stuff that you brought up, Tina, is awesome. We were on that one yesterday. So we were on Leo Pareja's on YouTube. That was 47,000 people on that. Fast forward movement, I think we got up to 4,200 at one point. They had to pivot from doing Zoom to doing it into the Facebook Live, right? Because there was no way Zoom was going to support all the people. There's a lot of fear out there, but what I will tell you from what I'm seeing, I think there's a few, EXP is definitely not the only one. I think there's a few brokerages that are stepping up, supporting their agents and having calls and discussions and all that stuff. I think there's probably a lot of the smaller ones, and I would imagine especially the ones that are 100% flat fee brokerages where the broker's not making a ton of money, where they're sticking their head in the sand and just hoping this goes away, right? A lot of people did that, I'll tell you from our experience when COVID happened. So we've talked to some decently seasoned agents during COVID that some of them were elderly, but COVID hit, their numbers were down, reached out to them, talked to them like, hey man, what happened? Well, I stayed indoors. I wanted to stay away from things. Things were too tumultuous. I didn't want to deal with business as well, the stress, all that stuff. During COVID, like once we opened back up in California, our business went crazy. Because there were people wanting to buy, right? There were not as many people looking to help them. And so finding solutions during turbulent times, right? You're bringing value to people. Value translates into money. So are you going to say something?
I'm just going to say that my personal perspective on it is, yeah, that I'm excited about it. Kind of like you mentioned, that people are controlled by fear. Like they're just glued to the television, watching the news. So all those realtors that are controlled by all the messages that are popping up about how hard it's going to be and all that stuff, a lot of those folks are going to step out of the business, and that translates to more clients for the people that are willing to stick it out and make it happen. So I'm definitely excited about it.
Absolutely. And what I'll say too is you guys are in the right spot for this happening, right? So there's not that many brokerages on the face of the earth that have 16,000 plus agents, right? Our brokerage has about 90,000. Our group alone, so the fast forward movement that Adina was referencing, we have about 16,000 people in there now. And a lot of them are top performers, right? I didn't realize this until the call the other day. I already knew about Jay Kinder being like the #2, I think he was Coldwell Banker agent in the world before he came to EXP. I didn't realize that Leo Pareja, right, who's sitting at the EXP corporate level with his license and stuff, was, what did he say? The #1 KW in the world, I think, and the number 5 out of any brokerage in the world at one point, right? And that's who you have on corporate staff supporting you. So, Glenn Sanford, visionary, obviously created this company, very intelligent guy. He's already come out, done some videos, and there'll be continued communication for the company. This is just the start. But if you want to make sure that you're in a group of individuals that have the right mindset, at least at the top level, that's not to say that there's not going to be naysayers, right? But at least as the majority that have the right mindset on how to push through this and how to succeed in this environment, being here at EXP and being in the fast forward movement's the right place to be. So, all right. Anything else from you guys? I know we went over, but open it up one last time and then we'll shut it down for today. All good? Cool. Appreciate you guys. Keep your head up. Again, positive mindset's key, right? Plug in all the resources that you have available. As we mentioned before, we are about to release some new stuff for you guys to start doing. So we're finalizing the cold calling approach for the unlicensed intern side. That'll get put out, as well as how to access the system. So be on the lookout for that. When that does get dropped, you're going to end up having, it's got instructions in it, but you'll have to send an email to Tasha to get access to the cold calling system. You're also going to have to create a system called LastPass. So if you want to go out and do that proactively, you can. So it's basically a password repository system where someone can send you a password anonymously where you don't actually see the password to allow you to log on to systems. So you can set that up if you want to in advance. We'll be getting those instructions out hopefully this week. We've had to go back through and just refine the approach on it. So there's that. And then the other two things really quick that we'll be releasing out to you guys. Again, there'll be instructions on these two when they release, but we're going to get some graphics out to you guys for PCS season, right? We're all coming from military networks. So to be able to post to your socials, to be able to find out who in your network, right, is looking to move sometime over the next 3 to 6 months. And that way those are already done for you. That's going to be a critical skill that you guys can use throughout your career to just be able to help other military families, right? We do it internally with our team too. So we'll have those graphics, and then we're also going to have graphics for you guys in the SkillBridge program itself to also post. There'll be a battle rhythm, if you will, on the posting rhythm and expectations there. But the advantage with the SkillBridge program, as we've talked to you guys about before, you'll have the graphics now to be able to go post out. People reach out to you, say if they want to apply, put them through the application, whatever, but make sure that they know when they apply to name you as the person that introduced them to the program. That way, assuming you come on and join EXP with us, if they also come on and join EXP, they can join with you instead of us, right? They'll still get our support. So our support is part of the program, but they can come in under you. And that way, as you help them succeed in this industry, you can create some recurring income for yourself as well. So we'll get those items out to you. Again, the cold calling stuff will probably come out this week. I would imagine the graphic stuff will probably be out next week. So cool. That's all I have for you guys. Again, keep your heads up. Positive attitudes are definitely required when this stuff's going on. I would advise ignoring most of the media stuff because most of it's garbage. So if you want truth on what's going on, post in the SkillBridge channel. Myself, Zohar, Conrad will reply. Other interns can, especially licensed ones can reply as well. And then we'll go from there. So cool. See you guys later.